Hello. Hello, Mateus. Hello, Gustavo. Hello, Mr. Pantufi. Hello, Sophia. And we had a few 11th graders in here by mistake, which is okay. I got a little bit confused with the time, but I know I had you guys at 4:30. But anyway, we are going to finish chapter 6. This is a short class. I want to show you something which is very important. It's your assignments, guys. You got to do your assignments. Look at this. Look at this. Assignments. I got some good news, by the way. I got some good news that we don't have to do journals anymore for U.S. history. I'll wait for a few more people to come in. And we will begin. Hello, Sophia. Hello, Mateus. Okay, so guys, you're gonna be with me until 5:15, and then you will have class with Miss Summer at 5:15 economics. So let's get to it. We are going to finish our chapter on the progressive era. Remember, in the progressive era was a time in America of a lot of change for homeless people, for women, for workers, for immigrants. So this was a time in America where we saw a lot of change, and some of this change is still here today. Okay, this is why we still study the the progressive era, because it's something that's important and even affects some of the stuff that is happening here in Brazil, because we still have a lot of progressives out there. So as usual, and I forgot to save it, I think it's in my other computer, we're going to go into our Blackboard because we do need to open the assignments. Now, remember, guys, I got a message from Jeza that came from Texas that said you do not have to do your journal entries anymore. This is really good news. But that means that you should be caught up. I'm going to put everybody on the shame list. Look at the shame list. Sumaya is not on the shame list. Look how amazing that is, Sumaya. Sumaya is not on the shame list. Mateus, both Mateus, Pantufi and Santana, you guys are awesome. You've done a lot of work. You need to just do a little bit of work here. What is that? Comprehensive check. So you got to do that. Analyze historical documents. Pantufi, you sent me a copy of that. Send it. Okay. Rodrigo, good work there, guy. So a lot of people have not done the Unit 1 resource comprehension check. If I'm not mistaken, we did this one in class. Those were those questions. Guys, next class, we will have Zoom, and we will stay on Zoom and just do assignments. Mayada, what's happening, my girl? Look at that. Nothing. I mean, I have two things, okay? You need to work a little harder, my dear. Livia, too. Livia, you got to do more work. Gustavo's doing okay, but you got to send in some of that work. So, comprehensive check is what we are going to be doing, okay? With so much confusion here. Anyway, hello, Mayada. You have to do your work. You have to do your work. So we are going to get right into the election of 1912. 1912 becomes an important year in American history for quite a few reasons. Big election, and then we're going to start getting right into. Okay, if you sent yesterday, that's probably why it's not there. Okay, if you sent it yesterday, but still, but good. I mean, you're doing good. I mean, everybody needs to beat Sumaya. Sumaya is killing everybody, but I definitely need to see Mayara, Sophia, Livia. You guys are behind by a lot. Henry, Enrique, and Gustavo are okay, but they need to do better. But we are already down here. Look, we are down here. So we're gonna spend some time on Zoom just doing assignments on Tuesday because we are far ahead. So getting into the progressive era, there was a big campaign, big strong campaign. And remember, our friend Roosevelt was president before, and then we had Taft, who didn't really fit the progressive ideals. And then Roosevelt tried to run again with the Bull Moose Party. Okay, he started his own party. So there was a lot of fight among the Republicans with who's going to become the president. So there was three people in this in the beginning. We had our friend Taft, we had Roosevelt, and then we had Woodrow Wilson. And because Taft had alienated himself to so many groups, it mainly became a contest between two progressives: Roosevelt, a Republican progressive, and Woodrow Wilson, which was a Democratic progressive. I hate when this site does this, so I have to go here, open it again. It locks sometimes. I don't know if yours does that, but mine does. So let's log in. Let's get down there. Let's make that big so I can open this page. Okay. Oh, that just sucks, man, because I just waste so much time doing all this. The progressive movement. There we go. Lesson 3. And it became a battle between these two guys. Lesson 4 assignments. Don't forget, we have these questions that we're answering. And I'm trying to find out from Texas exactly what part is the journal, if it means you don't have to do this part. But it's definitely not the assignments, okay? The assignments we're still doing. So I hope that you have yours open so that when it's finished, you can send it all together. I erased mine for some reason, or the computer erased it, I don't know. So we're just gonna continue right from where we left off. I'm gonna make that a little bigger. And I believe we answered all of these questions. Right up to that, how did President Taft's beliefs differ from the progressives? Remember, because at the end of the last video, we um, were showing that Taft was very different from the rest of the presidents. How did the progressives support women's suffrage? We studied that in the last class. What programs did social welfare programs attempt to reform? How did Roosevelt regulate big business? Okay, so we have two more questions. Question 12 and question 13. So, Wilson versus Roosevelt. Let's get to it. After university teaching, okay, Woodrow Wilson entered politics as a progressive. He was the governor of New Jersey and he introduced a lot of reforms. Um, he just wanted things to be a little bit better. In less than 2 years, New Jersey became a model for progressive reform because of all the things that he did in New Jersey. That's the city where I'm from, or the state. And it became this hot contest. Roosevelt accepted large trust as a fact of life. He favored laws to protect women and children in the labor force. He supported workers' compensation if you're injured on the job. So he called this new program New Nationalism. Wilson had his own program. It was called the New Freedom. He criticized Roosevelt's New Nationalism because it supported monopoly. Okay. Wilson also said that Roosevelt gave the federal government too much power, okay, in the economy, and it did nothing to have more competition. Wilson believed that freedom was better than efficiency. So Roosevelt and Taft, they split the Republican votes. Some Republicans voted for Taft, some Republicans voted for Roosevelt. So what that means is that Wilson won because he got the rest of the people. Okay, if you have three people in a race, sometimes the third person is going to take away votes from one of the guys, which means the other one will win. Okay, let's continue. How did Wilson earn the respect of progressives? Well, Wilson started right away to have his reforms. And during his 8 years of power, 8 years, he demonstrated that he had got a lot of executive power. He had a lot of reforms that affected tariffs, the banking system, trusts, which were those big companies that would become like monopolies, and workers' rights. And income tax, this becomes the 16th Amendment, okay? And what does this say? Is a direct tax is one that's imposed directly on a person or their property. If the federal government wants to tax property, it has to make sure that it's an appropriate tax, okay, based on the population. So you can't just have this one flat tax regardless if people are poor or rich. So this made it very difficult for Congress to pass direct taxes. An indirect tax is a tax that someone pays, but the burden falls on someone else. For example, if I'm making a car and there's a big tax to make this car, I'm going to raise the price of the car, so you're going to pay that tax indirectly. So really, you, the consumer, pays the tax. Sales taxes, excise taxes, and all these different taxes are forms of indirect tax. Okay? Income tax on wages is also an indirect tax, which sometimes you pay taxes. They take money out of your salary to pay for certain things. This is a form of indirect tax. Uh-oh, my battery is dying on the computer. Let me turn on let me turn that on. And until the early 1900s, the federal government raised most of its money using sales taxes, excise taxes, tariffs. So when the progressive movement began, people argued that this was not fair. Okay, let me see how much battery I have left. I don't know. Hopefully the computer won't turn off. And so progressives began to think about the income tax were the best way to fund the federal government. And so it could be graduated, meaning that very rich people would pay more taxes, not so rich people would pay less taxes. So in 1894, Congress imposed income taxes on rich Americans, but the following year, the Supreme Court did not like this, and it said this tax is not fair because it's not only tax on their work, but it's taxes on every type of income. So if somebody earned money because they read something or because they had stock, they still had to pay taxes. And the Supreme Court said this is not cool at all. Okay. So the court's decision made progressives very angry. Okay, it meant that income taxes could be put on wages and fall on working class Americans, but the rich people who earn most of their income from property could not be taxed. So basically, what Wilson is saying is, look, it's not fair that you're going to tax the rich and the poor the same way. Tax them only on their work, because usually rich people don't make all of their money just work, okay, just through work. Sometimes they buy land, they buy property, they buy things that they rent out. So that's income too. That's money that's going into their pocket, which is not taxed. So this is not fair, okay? And this means that poor people are paying the most, not rich people. So progressives began to say that, oh, I got a message from Renata. She says that journals and notebooks are the same assignment, so you don't have to do these anymore. Ain't that some happy news, guys? That is happy news. But you have to do the assignments, which are these questions, okay? So you have no excuse now not to do your work, because you do not have to do those little charts, the send in the notes. On the WhatsApp group, I will show you exactly what it is that you have to write in that part of Blackboard. Okay, basically you just have to say, we looked at this assignment in class, boom, and then you have to send that. But I will explain it to you very easily inside of WhatsApp. So President Roosevelt and Taft supported an amendment, as did a lot of leaders, saying that allowing for taxes on incomes, okay? So President Wilson appeared before Congress, and he came to present a bill to reduce tariffs and introduce a federal income tax. He lobbied members of Congress to support the tariff reduction bill, and not even Roosevelt had done something like this. So in 1913, Congress passed the Revenue Act, also known as the Underwood-Simmons Act. This doesn't mean you shouldn't take notes, because you do have quizzes, guys, and you do have a test at the end. So continue to take your own notes for yourself, because it's a lot of information here. And this law reduced the average tariff on imported goods to about 30%. And the income tax was there to replace the money that the country lost on these tariffs. So you get a little bit closer to a free trade. And Wilson also believed in reforming the banks. And how did he do this? He wanted to create a Federal Reserve System. And this was a national bank that would have this reserve money, meaning that if a small bank had a crisis or a state had a crisis, people wouldn't lose the money that was in the bank. The federal government, through the Federal Reserve Act, would guarantee that money. Okay, so every bank, even here in Brazil, that money is guaranteed so that anything that you have in the bank isn't just lost. I believe here in Brazil, I could be wrong, but in America, yes, um, it's a way that this federal bank, it's really a private bank, but it's called the federal bank. It regulates all the other banks. It sets the interest rates, which shows how much people can borrow. Um, so if interest rates are high, people are going to borrow less, which slows the economy but reduces inflation. So this was a way to regulate things in a way that hadn't been seen before. So this is a very, very cool thing that happened. But some people disagree. Some people think that it really took away consumer powers. Okay, so this is the second thing Roosevelt did. The first thing, he got income tax and also lowering tariffs. The second thing is he got the Federal Reserve Bank started. The third thing that he starts to do is get more competition. He wants to destroy these monopolies. Okay. He did realize Roosevelt was right. Big business was more efficient. Okay. But he still, and he even decided against going against trying to destroy monopolies. But the progressives wanted action. They wanted him to do something about big business. So they created the Federal Trade Commission to monitor American business. And this was a way to say, hey, are these big businesses playing by the rules? We need to investigate them, see if they're doing any unfair trade to try to hurt their competition. So I can't lie about my competition. I can't say that, hey, this hamburger is made with dogs if it's not true. Okay, so the FTC is a way to show that these big businesses are there playing by the rules. Oh, goodness. Again, I don't know why this site does this, but let's open it again. All right. Regulating big business. That was number 4, page 4, reforming the banks, antitrust. And then he also, Wilson did not want the FTC to break up big business, but it just wanted to be like a policeman. It was just a policeman to be able to make sure that big business is doing the right thing. And then they also passed the Clayton Antitrust Act. It outlawed certain practices that restricted competition. So again, all of these things are there not only to protect big businesses from each other, make sure that they're being fair, but to also allow smaller business to have a chance to survive. Okay? Regulating big business. Well, first, he bans or regulated child labor. The Keating-Owen Child Labor Act prohibited the employment of children under 14. The Supreme Court said this is unconstitutional, but hey, it got people to really look at Wilson and say, wow, he's really working for us. He's a true progressive who's truly trying to help the workers, especially children. He also supported the Adamson Act, which established an 8-hour workday for railroad workers. The Federal Farm Loan Act, which helped provide low interest loans to farmers. So you see, he's very much in the progressive vein. And he also expanded both the federal government and the power of the president. Okay? New roles for government. Progressives made important changes in the political life of the USA. Because before this, people didn't really expect the government to help them. Okay? So all of a sudden now, it's like Americans feel, way we have an actual connection to the government. The government is there to help us, to protect us. So this can almost be considered the beginning of the modern era of government, compared to what was happening before in the 1800s. So it's a very, very cool time in history to see where we are now. Let me see if somebody wrote a beautiful question for me. Pantufi, I sent it yesterday. I saw that. I'm glad. Okay, I just need some of you to work a little harder. And guys, if you have questions on the quizzes or anything like that, I'm here. But on Tuesday, we will have a Zoom class. A few Zoom classes, because I can only stay on for 40 minutes, but I will be able to send you the link again and again and again, so that we can just do assignments and you can ask me questions about the quizzes and things like that. So what are some of the limits of progressivism? Okay, well, it didn't address racial and religious discrimination. Okay, but blacks by themselves, without the progressives, were getting into this idea of advancement. We had a great black thinker, W.E.B. Du Bois. They began to he and 28 other black leaders met in Niagara Falls to demand full rights from African Americans, blacks, okay? And they started the Niagara movement. And they believed that voting rights were essential, very important to ending racial discrimination. And there were some race riots around this time, where blacks and whites fought each other. One of them was in Springfield, Illinois. It involved Mary White Ovington. She had been studying blacks in New York and was determined to do something to improve their situation. Other progressives like Jane Addams of Hull House, the Muckrakers, Ida Wells Barnett, and Lincoln Steffens joined Ovington in calling for change. And capitalizing on Springfield as Abraham Lincoln's hometown, they organized a national conference. And then at the second conference of the following year, they began an organization called the NAACP. Again, if you're taking notes, I would write this, because that's a very, very famous organization in America, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Du Bois, who was in the Niagara movement, he heard of these guys, and eventually these two groups merged. If anybody here, you guys may be too young to watch the Watchmen series on HBO, but the first episode begins with a riot, so in Oklahoma. And these were very serious events. So a riot is when it's people just kind of fight on the street and there's a lot of confusion and tumult. These are riots. So blacks were not the only minority groups facing discrimination. Of course, there were Jews who suffered from some mob violence in immigrants, and they're not even mentioning gays and maybe people of other religions. So, things weren't perfect during the progressive era. They were starting to change. We got to change somewhere, right? But we did have a lot of organizations that were begun, like the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, which combated stereotypes and discrimination. And it wanted to remove negative portrayals of Jews in movies, in the print and on the stage, because people would make these movies with very bad versions of Jewish people. And as we know, very, very soon after this, we have World War II with Hitler, so Jews were suffering around this time. Oh, you saw Watchmen, Enrique, so you probably know about, was it Topeka? What was the city that had the race riots? Oklahoma race riots. I always forgot the name of the city. Tulsa, Oklahoma. So the show Watchmen is like an alternative history, okay? And it starts with these race riots, and because of these race riots, the federal government gave a lot of money to the blacks, which they call reparations. And so all the blacks that live in Oklahoma are very, they're rich, they have work, they're living a good life compared to how blacks were, are in some cases, generally in a lot of cities, in a lot of places. So it's kind of interesting. And they don't teach this in school, by the way. I didn't know about the Tulsa race riots. A lot of people didn't, because they don't teach this stuff at school. And basically, this city, it was self-sufficient. It had a lot of black businesses, Black Wall Street, and there was a lot of the U.S. government went there and blew it up. Black Wall Street. You can read about Black Wall Street right there. Anyway, guys, just to review. Oh, not to review. Let's just look at these last two questions. These questions you have to answer yourself, your opinion. What do you believe were the most important successes and the biggest failures of the progressives? We just went through a lot about the progressives, including Truman. And then look at the map of the presidential election of 1912 on page 221. What conclusion can you draw about this election? Okay, well, how do you do that? Very easily. I believe it's this map right here. So look at this map, and what conclusions can you draw about the election? Well, remember we talked a little bit about there being three candidates, so that split the vote a little bit. So there's the popular vote, the electoral vote, and who won in what state. Well, they don't have a key here, but I'm guessing blue is Wilson. The map is mostly blue and is labeled as a 1912 election when your cursor hovers over it. Okay. Well, blue, red, I imagine, are our friends, the Republicans. How come they don't have a key here that says who is who? And then I imagine that the yellow or tan color is our friend Roosevelt, who is in the Bull Moose Party. So looking at this map, what do you think about it? What do you believe about the election based on this map? By the way, there's Oklahoma right there, and there's New Jersey right there. Looks like a landslide to me. Looks like Wilson was going to win this election regardless if Taft was running or not. Because, man, oh man, he won everything across the board. Guys, in just a few minutes, you're going to begin class with Miss Summer. Hello. You're going to begin class with Miss Summer. So get ready for that. She's going to send you the Zoom meeting on WhatsApp. We are going to have a Zoom class next week where we're going to work like crazy and get some more quizzes done. If you have any questions, I mean, this was a very quick class where we just kind of just did one quick lesson. One way the 1912 elections was different. We had three major candidates, including a sitting president, a former president, and a relatively new politician. For your notes, for yourself, because remember, we don't have to do the notebook anymore, but guys, take notes, because when you have to do the quizzes, when you have to do the test at the end of the semester, you're gonna go crazy, because you're gonna say, oh my God, where are the answers to these questions? Oh no. Okay, you don't want to do that. So take notes. Wilson's reforms. I would just put everyone and just put a little sentence so you know what it is. Income taxes in the 16th Amendment. And then there was reforming the banks, antitrust, break up those monopolies, and regulating big business. So we got 4. Maybe easier for me to do it like that. 4. Okay? And then, of course, the government changed a lot. People saw a closer connection with themselves and the government. But progressivism wasn't perfect. Blacks were not given all these new rights, these new freedoms. Jews, other minorities that aren't even mentioned in the book, do not have as many as many sorry guys, I lost my train of thought because I saw a message here from Jason. Did not have as many rights. And don't forget, guys, look at this. Next class, assignments. Sumaya, congratulations. Mateus, Rodrigo, Henry, Enrique, Gustavo, you're almost there. You need to do a little bit more work. But then Gabriel, Sophia, Mayara, Livia, Angela, which I never see in class. You guys have to do more work, okay? And my battery is about to die. Good gracious. And definitely this resource comprehension check we did in class, guys. I know you have it in your notebook. If we need to go over it together, let me know in the WhatsApp group. And that is all, okay? Because now Miss Summer is probably waiting for you. Well, have another 5 minutes. But this is the main thing here, guys. You have to really, really, really work on that. Okay? Thank you guys for coming to class. I hope you had a good holiday. And we are back on schedule on Tuesday and have the long class, the full class, okay? And I am out of here. That's about it for today. Thank you guys. Don't forget, next class will be on Zoom to do assignments. Bye, guys.